Have you ever heard someone say, "My house, my rules"? But what if that phrase, so common in so many families, is quietly destroying the very thing it claims to protect? What if authority based on fear doesn't create respect, but only silence? Today we explore a simple, yet deeply uncomfortable question. Do children learn responsibility through fear, or through relationship? To explore this question, we step into a short theatrical piece called The Broken Glass Mirror. A story about art, psychology, family, and about something many adults prefer not to see. The moment when authority turns into authoritarianism.
Hello, Bella. It's good to see you around here. Any news from your grandmother?
Hi, Mr. John. Thank you for welcoming me once again. Your place is inspiring and cozy. Whenever I arrive here, I feel embraced, from the garden all the way to the library, not to mention the delicious things served in the kitchen. It's a kind of welcome based on equality. We don't feel inferior just because we're young. My friends are always coming up with an excuse to gather here again, but about my grandmother, she keeps wandering slowly, at the pace of her tired legs. We don't speak directly very often. She keeps sending texts to our reading group regularly, but she doesn't really chat. That's her way of letting us know she's doing fine.
How can I help? You seem nervous. Is there something I can do for you today?
Our theater teacher is introducing us to the work of one of the most influential and fundamental American playwrights, someone who specialized in addressing extremely delicate subjects, taboo, complex, and emotionally traumatic topics, Tennessee Williams. He passed away in 1983 at the age of 72.
I know his work well. I have some of his books. Williams broke barriers in American theater in the mid-20th century by bringing to the stage topics that society at the time preferred to ignore or keep hidden. His approach was poetic, yet brutally honest and psychologically profound. But he was not the only American to use art to open pathways in the closed minds of society. Arthur Miller focused more on delicate social and political issues, such as anti-communist hysteria in The Crucible, the failure of the American dream, and moral corruption. Edward Albee, known for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, deconstructed the institution of marriage and sanity through cruel psychological games. Tony Kushner wrote the masterpiece Angels in America, which addressed in a visceral way the AIDS crisis, homosexuality, and politics in the 1980s.
That's good. What a relief. I was nervous because I wasn't sure how to explain the reason I came here today. I need help trying to solve two problems at once. We have to write and perform a play inspired by the courage of Tennessee Williams. We've been reading his works, and the delicate subjects he addressed are still challenging even today.
Oh, Bella. They may be even more delicate today than they were in the 1950s. Back then, and even until the end of the 20th century, there was a willingness to embrace the new. That openness has faded. I see far more prejudice now than during the premieres of those plays. The social decay and hypocrisy he exposed, the lies people tell themselves and others to maintain appearances, are still very much alive. Addictions, drugs, and alcoholism remain mechanisms for escaping reality. Repressed sexuality and desire. He openly explored female desire, nymphomania, and homosexuality, which at the time was treated indirectly but was clearly present in subtext, as in Cat, on a hot tin roof. Mental health and fragility. His characters often struggle with madness, depression, and nervous collapse, like Blanche Dubois. But personally, the subject that affects me the most is still domestic violence and abuse. Perhaps because of my own family history. Williams portrayed the tension connected to aggression and physical and psychological abuse with courage and honesty. I'm not a specialist in literature, but I can recognize when an author manages to break barriers and deliver his message. Old Billy, if he were here, would repeat, Art is a lie invented to tell the truth. And Tennessee Williams's legacy is genuine art. I must have some original editions in the library. If I didn't lend them out, I should have. A Streetcar Named Desire, The Collapse of Illusion in the Face of Brutal Reality. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, dealing with repressed homosexuality. Brick's relationship with Skipper. Mendacity within the family. Greed and fear of death through cancer. The Glass Menagerie, focusing on family dysfunction, escape from reality, and the inability to deal with abandonment. Suddenly, last summer, addressing shocking themes such as lobotomy used as a form of silencing and even symbolic vampirism. But my dear, doesn't all this transparency about society's darker traits seem a bit heavy? You've just turned 14, haven't you?
Well, Mr. John, that's actually the principle of our theater school. There can't be any forbidden subject or topic that's too heavy. What we learn there is how to use a light approach in service of difficult things. Our teacher calls this leverage. It's a principle. If we have to force something, it means we're not using the right tool. It's not about the task, it's about the resources used to perform it. Above all, it's a school of art, of beauty, joy, and fulfillment, where even discomfort can release a kind of pleasure. We're learning about the author's courage, the way he dealt with problems. The school's motto is, big problem, bigger creativity.
Very good. Your answer shows the maturity needed to continue your studies. But it's still not clear what exactly you're looking for. It's obvious that you have access to the author's work. What would be the other reason for your concern?
Domestic violence. Daniel has always been my friend. I met him when we were still babies. We grew up in the same neighborhood. We shared friendships, dreams, and joys. Today, he's in pain. He suffers cornered and oppressed, and that pain is stealing the light that used to distinguish him from the other boys. My friend lives on the defensive. He reacts like those dogs that have been kicked too many times. Family culture, outdated beliefs, they're cultivating in him the darkest shadows of human nature. I realized I can approach this subject indirectly, reflecting the causes and effects without necessarily making hostile accusations. I know I can do it, but I need help finding the right lever to make things move without forcing the movement. I don't want to simply write a play for school. I know I can shine light on a defective mechanism, provoke the discovery of alternatives for those who hurt others without realizing the pain they cause. It's a unique opportunity because Daniel's family will be at the premiere. They might understand the message without even realizing the argument behind it.
Bella, that is an enormous challenge, using your own words. You still lack the appropriate tools, but your intelligence, I would say your wisdom, goes beyond those limitations. Your school's motto is powerful. Creativity truly has power. Tell everything you know about your friend's situation to Dr. Ada Champ. She will be your instrumental lever, lending strength and legitimacy to your intention. I'm certain that at least one seed of liberation you will manage to plant in the consciousness of those people. Your goal is legitimate. But remember, Tennessee Williams did not achieve immediate results. Even today, people are still leaving behind the inertia of narrow values in order to free themselves from the unnecessary burdens he pointed out. Work on your project, but do not turn it into a burden for yourself. Remember, your responsibility extends only to the limits of your awareness. You do not have to free those who choose their chains. I will give you Dr. Champ's phone number. Schedule a meeting with her here. I'll ask her to dedicate as much time as possible to you. Move forward with whatever you can by phone, email, and so on. How much time do you have to write the script?
I have the time of pain. My friend is suffering, and not helping him creates urgency in my chest. His parents love him. I have no doubt about that, but they ignore how much they hurt him. They ignore other ways of raising a child and are crushing a wounded heart. I just need the right words to place in the mouths of the right characters so that the situation can be reflected in a constructive way. It doesn't have to be intellectually refined. In fact, the simpler and more sincere it is, the better.
Then let's call her right now. We'll start immediately. With luck, she'll have time to listen to you, and the process can move forward.
Thank you, Mr. John. Dr. Champ is a special person. She listened to me, and we'll talk several more times before I return for an in-person meeting. See you next week.
John, my dear, I arrived a few minutes early to comment on this girl's effort. I gathered a very large set of dense material with the most current research about the specific problem of the young man. Bella showed an unusual level of dedication, even compared to my graduate students. I will do everything I can to help her understand the foundations, because the desire this young woman has to learn is a dynamo for our spirits. This young woman understands the usefulness of knowledge. She sees the function of learning and rejoices in accessing it. I hadn't seen that in a long time. To be honest, I hadn't seen such enthusiasm for learning even in my own reflection in the mirror. Bella has barely begun and she is already creating transformations. If she carries this contagion to the stage, she may not even need words.
I'll leave you alone. Take whatever time you need.
Thank you, John. I'll receive her and we'll go to the library. I brought sandwiches and juice. Let's dive into the review.
Dr. Ada, it's good to see you in person. My grandmother would love to be here today.
Hello, Bella. I am an admirer of your grandmother. Tiffany has already contributed greatly to the expansion of awareness in both clinical practice and academia. Now she is doing what many theorists only dream of doing. She is experiencing knowledge in practice, and that will certainly result in rich material that will help all of us even more. Shall we work? Let's focus on the following idea. Contemporary developmental psychology often distinguishes between hierarchical authority and relational authority. Research associated with the work of John Bowlby and Diana Baumrind suggests that children tend to cooperate and develop responsibility more naturally when guidance is grounded in trust, emotional safety, and the quality of the relationship with their caregivers.
Yes, we're on the same page. This line of thought mainly comes from two research traditions: attachment theory and studies on parenting styles.
Let me open these ideas a little more for you. 1. The foundation, attachment theory. The British psychiatrist and psychoanalyst John Bowlby developed attachment theory. He observed that children do not need only food and physical protection. They need a secure emotional relationship with those who care for them. This relationship creates what he called a secure base. That means, when the child feels the adult is available and trustworthy, the child explores the world with greater confidence and internalizes rules and values with less resistance. Later, the Canadian psychologist Mary Ainsworth experimentally confirmed these ideas with a famous strange situation experiment, which revealed different attachment patterns: secure attachment, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment. Children with secure attachment tend to cooperate more with their parents, develop better self-regulation, show less oppositional behavior, because the adult's authority is born from trust, not from fear.
It's fear, doctor, always fear. The fear of constant punishment stole the brightness from my friend's eyes.
Let me repeat, because the adult's authority is born from trust, not from fear. What is born from fear can never truly be called authority. What is born from fear is called authoritarianism. Remember that for your play. 2. Parenting styles. Diana Baumrind. The developmental psychologist Diana Baumrind studied how different forms of authority affect children's development. She identified 3 main styles, later expanded to 4. 1. Authoritarian. High demands plus low affection. Characteristics: rigid rules, forced obedience, a frequent punishment. Typical result: external obedience, little autonomy, a greater probability of fear or rebellion.
Sorry, doctor, but this seems so obvious, doesn't it? What else could anyone expect from the equation high demand plus low affection?
My dear, the issue of obedience is an additional chapter in our understanding, and we return again to the factor of fear. Many cultures value fear of parents as if it were a form of respect. It is a clear misunderstanding of focus. Respect cannot be imposed. It is born from trust and admiration. Unfortunately, we still face this distortion of meaning in many parental orientations. Number 2. Permissive. High affection plus few rules. Characteristics. Little structure. Inconsistent limits. Typical result. Difficulty with self-control. Low tolerance for frustration.
Wow, that equation doesn't work either. I know people with low frustration tolerance, spoiled people who were never really educated at home.
Here things often appear disguised. In most cases I treated with this profile, the issue wasn't lack of rules but pure laziness to set an example. The authoritarian frees himself from giving an example. He simply designs rules and enforces them by force. The permissive one knows that force does not work and that something more is required. But that creates a big problem. He must obey the same rules himself. Remember this. The permissive parent is, first of all, permissive with himself and masks his laziness with affectionate gestures. Number 3. Authoritative, the healthiest. High affection plus clear limits. Characteristics. Rules explained. Dialogue. Mutual respect. A firmness without humiliation. Typical result. A greater responsibility. A spontaneous cooperation. A stronger moral development. This is where the concept of relational authority appears.
Sorry again, doctor, but this still seems too obvious to require so many studies and so many brilliant people spending so much time on it.
Ella, concepts are not merely ideas with more or less logic or common sense. Concepts are like plants with deep and multiple roots. The gardener cuts deeper, cuts again, yet parts of the roots remain hidden, still feeding the plant we want to eliminate. The principle of punishment and reward is everywhere, and it determines a power imbalance because someone will always occupy the role of rewarding or punishing. Fear then enters the scene wearing the mask of justice. It becomes normalized and almost unconsciously accepted by everyone. That is where what seemed obvious disappears, giving space to the exercise of power in the form of forced obedience, whether through fear or through another figure, corruption or the game of interests. Remember this carefully. Both the terror of fear and the game of interests corrode affection. That is one of the main causes of family collapse. 3. Hierarchical authority versus relational authority. Modern psychology often distinguishes between two types of authority. Hierarchical authority, based on power, position, punishment, control. The logic is, you obey because I command. It works in the short term, but it generates fear, resentment, internal resistance. Relational authority, based on connection, trust, example, coherence. The logic is, I follow because I trust you. In this case, the child internalizes values, develops moral awareness, cooperates without coercion. For the central discovery of research, developmental psychology discovered something very profound. Children do not learn responsibility through fear. They learn responsibility through relationship. It must be repeated. Children do not learn responsibility through fear. They learn responsibility through relationship.
Children do not learn responsibility through fear. They learn responsibility through relationship.
In other words, when the adult is secure, emotionally available, and consistent, the child wants to preserve the bond. And in order to preserve that bond, the child begins to cooperate, not through submission, but through belonging.
That's what cannot be missing from our play. I'm going to repeat and write it down. When the adult is secure, emotionally available, and consistent, the child wants to preserve the bond. And to preserve that bond, the child begins to cooperate, not through submission, but through belonging. When parents throw in their children's faces that they live under their roof, They may not realize they are striking an axe blow into the bond between their children and the family, destroying the children's sense of belonging and eliminating the natural possibility of cooperation. Isn't that so?
You have observed something that resembles the image of the hidden root of a harmful plant. It is another element of power imbalance. A child cannot compete with adults in the acquisition of material goods. It is an act of cowardice to demand that a minor contribute materially. It is an abuse of power that unfolds into emotional and psychological violence, often with irreversible damage. A child who does not feel belonging and trust inside a house or apartment does not know what a home is. And without a home, there is no space for a family. 5. An important concept: internalization. Researchers such as Lawrence Kohlberg showed that morality evolves through stages. In the early stages, a child obeys because of a fear of punishment, a desire for reward. But moral maturity appears when the rule begins to make sense internally. And that happens much more easily when a secure relationship exists. 6. A simple summary. Contemporary psychology suggests fear leads to superficial obedience. Punishment leads to resistance or submission. Relationship leads to responsibility. Or, in almost philosophical terms, fear produces silence. Trust produces conscience.
Sorry again. I'm starting to feel stupid for continuing to perceive all this as if it were too obvious. Of course, fear produces silence, trust produces conscience. I don't understand what is causing this revolt inside me. Help me, doctor. Having to say what is obvious should not be a necessary task. Where is the real problem? Why does this affect me so much?
Your revolt is understandable and, to your surprise, also obvious. What affects you is the factor of adult hypocrisy. They demand respect and do not respect. They cowardly terrorize, corrupt the natural nobility of children, and continue to demand purity from the young. Adults do not want to feel insecurity. They do not like to be punished. They demand responsibility, yet obstruct belonging. Bella, my dear, your discomfort is not with the obvious that goes unnoticed. Your revolt is legitimate. It is directed at the masked hypocrisy of adults. When authority must constantly resort to punishment, it often reveals a failure in the relationship, not a failure in the child. But few parents are honest enough to recognize that. Bella, your indignation echoes both in modern psychology and in the philosophy of education. There are still 3 very interesting things to add. 1. What modern neuroscience has discovered about fear and learning. It is remarkable. 2. Why punishment often increases problematic behaviors. 3. How modern schools are trying to replace punitive discipline with relational discipline.
I'm taking notes. Please continue. I keep imagining Daniel's parents. I like them. I know they're good people, but they're destroying the bridge of belonging between them and my friend. They are trading affection for the vanity of control and the illusion of power. Now that I look at these notes, I see that they are the ones who need help, much more than my friend.
1. What neuroscience discovered about fear and learning. In the last 30 years, neuroscience has shown something very clear. The brain learns worse when it is afraid. The neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux demonstrated that fear strongly activates the amygdala, a brain region responsible for survival responses. When this happens, the brain enters threat mode. The stress system releases cortisol. The functions of the prefrontal cortex decrease. The prefrontal cortex is precisely the area responsible for reasoning, self-control, decision-making, social learning. In other words, the greater the fear, the smaller the capacity to learn and reflect.
Daniel is having academic difficulties. He cannot concentrate, he gets distracted, he is always apathetic in class, and his grades are falling. Do you know what happens when he arrives home? More punishment. A vicious cycle that is destroying him.
That is why highly punitive environments often produce lying, escape, concealment, a superficial submission, but they do not produce moral conscience. 2. Why punishment often increases problematic behaviors. The researcher Elizabeth Gershoff analyzed dozens of studies on physical punishment and coercive discipline. The results are very consistent. Severe punishment is associated with a more aggression, a more oppositional behavior, less empathy, a worse relationships with parents. This happens for three main reasons. Modeling. The child learns. Whoever has power can hurt whoever is weaker. In other words, punishment teaches the very behavior it tries to prevent.
That is what torments me, Doctor. Punishment teaches the behavior it tries to prevent. They keep saying they must prevent Daniel from becoming a delinquent, yet they do not see that they themselves are pushing the boy toward revolt. How would you react if you had to hear, "This house is not yours. Everything here is mine. Your clothes, the food on your plate, the water in your shower, the light that illuminates your room. Everything here is mine. My house, my rules." Or how should one react when toys are confiscated, taken away, or destroyed in order to force obedience to absurd rules, disproportionate chores, or simple whims based on comparisons with other people from completely different realities? Or worse, how can someone endure being insulted, criticized, and physically attacked using as justification a quotation taken out of context from a book they claim to be sacred, but which they themselves do not respect? They bend its interpretation according to convenience, even if they must reinterpret it again minutes later. Yes, Doctor. Punishment teaches the behavior it tries to prevent.
I will continue, Bella. Calm yourself, your revolt will not help anything. We have a great deal of scientifically supported material that can serve as argument in your theatrical text. Remember that you possess the intelligence to transform data into a transformative lever. Yes, you said correctly. It is the parents who most need help to perceive healthier alternatives for education, alternatives that preserve the trust necessary to protect affection. Try to think about that now. Your challenge is greater than it seemed at the beginning. You have the chance to shine light into the narrow minds of parents dominated by concepts rooted in patterns of domination. Rejoice rather than revolt. You have a rare opportunity before you. You are honoring artists like Tennessee Williams, and that is enormous. Rejoice. I will continue. 2. Attention displacement. Instead of thinking, "What I did was wrong," the child thinks, "How can I avoid getting caught?" Morality becomes a survival strategy, not understanding. 3. Rupture of the bond. When the adult becomes a source of threat, the child's brain begins oscillating between submission, escape, confrontation. None of these states favors deep moral learning.
I know I am interrupting too much, sorry, but I was a small child and I could already see Daniel losing the bond with his parents. There was no other adult brave enough to warn the family about the disaster that was forming. Now we have this abyss.
Now we have awareness of an abyss. That is all that is needed to begin building a bridge. Let us continue. Do not worry about interrupting, keep taking notes. 3. What relational discipline is. Contemporary researchers inspired by John Bowlby and Diana Baumrind show that the most effective discipline has 3 pillars. 1. Connection before correction. The child needs to feel, "My caregiver is on my side." This reduces defensiveness. 2. Explanation and meaning. Rules stop being arbitrary. They gain understandable purpose. 3. Repair instead of punishment. Instead of suffer in order to learn, the logic becomes, let's repair what happened. This teaches responsibility, empathy, real consequences.
Do you believe there is still time to restore the relationship between Daniel and his parents?
Relational discipline is a two-way street. People are conditioned to see change only in children, as if adults were always right. They are not. The 3 points we just mentioned work perfectly for parents as well. That is where the beauty of relational discipline lies. It acts on the entire family simultaneously, repairing what was broken without needing to blame anyone. Simply operates through the advantage of healthy functioning. Where everyone wins, everyone cooperates. Let us move forward. For something very interesting for your theater, there is a psychological concept called co-regulation. A child's brain learns to regulate itself through the adult. When the adult maintains calm and presence, the child's nervous system stabilizes as well. If the adult explodes, the child's system explodes too. This idea appears in recent research by Daniel J. Siegel. I made sure that all the references mentioned here can be accessed directly through links in the electronic version of the material. If you are interested and have time to go deeper, just check the digital file in your email. Let's continue. There is a real psychological experiment that almost looks like a ready-made parable. It shows that children help more when they are not forced to help. When you learn about this experiment, you will probably want to include it in your story. It is almost a scientific parable about human motivation. The experiment of children who help. The developmental psychologist Michael Tomasello, from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, conducted a series of studies on child altruism. The objective was simple: to discover whether young children help naturally or only when they are rewarded. How the experiment worked. Children about 18 months old watched an adult performing simple tasks. For example, the adult dropped an object. The adult tried to open a door with hands full. The adult dropped a pencil. Without directly asking for help. What happened was surprising. Many children spontaneously picked up the object, helped open the door, handed back the pencil. In other words, the tendency to help appears very early in human life. The most surprising part of the study. Then researchers made a small change. They began rewarding some children when they helped. For example, a sticker, small toy. The result was unexpected. When the reward disappeared, these children helped less than before. This phenomenon is known in psychology as the overjustification effect. The idea is simple. When a behavior that was intrinsically motivated becomes controlled by external rewards, internal motivation decreases. What this reveals about discipline. This experiment suggests something profound. Children often want to cooperate, help, participate, but systems heavily based on punishment, reward, control, can displace natural motivation.
Interrupting again. With all respect, doctor, you use the verb may. I'm sorry, but it is obvious that the displacement of motivation will happen. That is the masked game of corruption we talked about at the beginning, isn't it?
True, Bella. The child begins to think, I help if there is a reward. Or, I avoid helping so I won't be controlled. What this means for education. Modern psychology concludes that 3 forces sustain natural cooperation. 1. Belonging. Feeling part of the group. 2. Competence. Feeling capable of contributing. 3. Autonomy. Feeling that participation is a choice. These 3 elements appear in self-determination theory developed by Edward L. Deci and Richard Ryan. When these 3 factors exist, cooperation flourishes. I can also show you something that will probably illuminate your theater even more. There is a very famous psychological experiment called the still face experiment. It shows, in just a few minutes, how a child reacts when emotional connection disappears. When you see it, you may feel that it could become one of the most powerful scenes in your play. The experiment I mentioned is one of the most visually powerful in developmental psychology. It almost looks like a small play by itself. It is called the still face experiment. It was conducted by developmental psychologist Edward Tronick at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. The goal was to observe how babies react when emotional connection with a caregiver suddenly disappears. How the experiment works. Mother and baby sit facing each other. Phase 1, normal interaction. The mother talks, smiles, and responds. The baby smiles, vocalizes, moves arms, tries to maintain interaction. It is a small emotional dialogue. Phase 2. Still face. The mother is instructed to become completely neutral. No expression, no response, no smile, only looking. What happens to the baby? In the first seconds, the baby tries to restore the connection. The baby smiles more, points, vocalizes, seeks attention. When that fails, something changes. The baby begins to show increasing stress. There may appear frustration, crying, agitated movements, emotional disorganization. Some babies eventually look away or shut down. The conclusion of the experiment. The study revealed something fundamental. Babies need emotional reciprocity in order to regulate themselves. Connection with the caregiver functions as an external regulation system for the infant brain. In simple terms, the baby's nervous system organizes itself through relationship. What does this reveal about discipline and authority? When the relationship is consistent, the brain learns safety. The child regulates emotions. A cooperation emerges more easily. When the relationship is marked by fear, rejection, unpredictability, the nervous system more easily enters states of defense, anxiety, opposition. Something deeply interesting. Researchers inspired by this work, such as Daniel J. Siegel, describe something called attunement. It is when the adult perceives and responds to the child's internal state. This builds neural networks related to empathy, self-control, social awareness. Well, Bella, we should probably stop here. I believe we have already addressed the main developments of relational authority. You will need to review the material, separate the elements, and build your theatrical plot. If you need more details, remember to access the reference links. And one more thing, do not demand too much from yourself. This is a collection of deep and complex studies. Professionals dedicated years of their careers to make their conclusions accessible to ordinary people. Do not expect to find vocabulary capable of transferring all of this perfectly to everyone. Identify the essentials and allow them to awaken the audience's curiosity. Use simple language that does not provoke intellectual resistance. Avoid condemning parents for their ignorance. And remember that everyone inherits patterns and concepts rooted in long traditions. Believe me, if you succeed in raising the banner of relational authority, you will already be contributing to a new era in relationships between parents and children. Break a leg.
3 days pass and Bella returns with the draft of her play in hand. With her are two friends, Peter and Ryan. They will perform the text for the appreciation of John and Dr. Ada Champ. The story is structured as follows. Mr. Walton, the liberating character, returns to his namesake hometown in the interior of the American state of Georgia after his journey as a writer and professor of literature at the country's leading universities. He bought the largest house available because he needed extra space for his library and to organize his books. He hired a few young people from the local school. They all share one thing in common: admiration for the work of Tennessee Williams. The Broken Glass Mirror. Setting. The first act takes place in the gardens of Walton's library, a sanctuary evoking the refuge of the glass menagerie. The second act moves inside the library. Bella plays the character Dr. Annabelle, a psychologist specializing in child and adolescent behavior, who performs her dissection of shadows. Peter plays Mr. Walton, and Ryan plays Timothy, the protective friend of his classmate Raphael, absent from the scenes, who is oppressed by his parents. Scene 1. The Sanctuary in the Shadow. Setting: Walton's library. Sunlight filters through climbing vines, casting complex shadows. The host is reading. Timothy enters, visibly disturbed.
Mr. Walton, this place it embraces me, you know, from the garden to here. I don't feel inferior here, but out there the dust of reality is suffocating the brightness in our friend Raphael's eyes.
I know, Timothy. Tennessee Williams knew that too. He brought to the stage what society preferred to ignore. But he wasn't the only one. Arthur Miller, Edward Albee, Tony Kushner, they all used art as a lever.
I need that lever, Mr. Walton. I need to write a text, a play, inspired by William's courage. Our teacher says, big problem, bigger creativity. Raphael's problem is too big. Domestic violence.
Domestic, the worst kind. Williams portrayed that with courage and honesty. But Timothy, you are only 14. Isn't that too heavy?
It's a theater school, Mr. Walton. A school of art, beauty, joy, and fulfillment, where even discomfort liberates pleasure. We are focused on the proper lever. I want to mirror causes and effects, shine light on a defective mechanism, provoke the discovery of alternatives for those who hurt others without realizing the pain they cause. Raphael's family will be at the premiere.
You have wisdom, Timothy, but you need tools. Dr. Annabelle will be your instrumental lever.
Scene 2, The Dissection of Shadows. Setting, the same library now illuminated by a single desk lamp. Dr. Annabelle sits surrounded by dense material. Timothy enters. Williams-esque dialogue.
Timothy, I gathered dense material. Your disposition is unusual. You see the function of knowledge and rejoice in accessing it. I had not seen such enthusiasm even in my own reflection for a long time. Timothy, you are already causing transformations. If you bring this contagion to the stage, you may not even need words. Shall we work? Let us focus on this idea. Contemporary developmental psychology often distinguishes between hierarchical authority and relational authority.
Yes, attachment theory and parenting styles.
Children with secure attachment cooperate more, because authority is born from trust, not from fear.
It is fear, Doctor. Always fear. The fear of constant punishment stole the brightness from my friend's eyes.
What is born from fear can never be considered authority. What is born from fear is called authoritarianism. Baumrind and parenting styles. The authoritarian style. High demand, low affection.
It's so obvious, isn't it? High demand plus low affection. What else could they expect?
My dear, the question of obedience is an additional chapter. Many cultures value fear as respect, a clear misunderstanding of focus. There is also the permissive style, laziness disguised with affectionate gestures. The ideal would be the authoritative style, high affection, clear limits. This is where relational authority appears.
Sorry, but it still seems too obvious.
Timothy, concepts are not simple ideas. They are like plants with multiple and deep roots. The principle of punishment and reward is everywhere, creating an imbalance of power. You obey because I command. It works in the short term, but generates fear, resentment, and internal resistance. Hierarchical authority versus relational authority. I follow because I trust you. Internalization. Children do not learn responsibility through fear. They learn it through relationship.
Children do not learn responsibility through fear. They learn it through relationship. I will remember that. When parents throw in their children's faces that they live under their roof, they ignore that they are striking an axe into the bond, destroying the sense of belonging, eliminating the natural possibility of cooperation.
You observe the hidden root of the harmful plant, a power imbalance, an abuse of power that unfolds into emotional and psychological violence with irreversible damage. A child who does not feel belonging, does not know what a home is, and without a home, there is no space for family.
It is the hypocrisy of adults. They demand respect and do not respect. They cowardly terrorize, corrupt the natural nobility of children, and still demand purity from the young. Adults do not want to feel insecurity. They do not like being punished, yet they obstruct the belonging of the defenseless. It is cowardly hypocrisy. Raphael constantly hears from his parents. This house is not yours. Everything here is mine. My house, my rules. And he listens in pain to the sound of the mendacity of those who claim to love him. His parents corrupt nobility with superficial submission and call him son. They destroy the sense of belonging when they should embrace and protect. They ignore that fear produces silence. They ignore that trust and admiration produce conscience and true respect. And the result? The abyss that now separates them. The solution? Relational authority, if they are honest.
That is exactly what cannot be missing from your text. The masked hypocrisy of adults. The failure in the relationship, not the failure of the child.
Tennessee Williams would be proud, Bella. You brought light into narrow minds. This adaptation transforms dense academic dialogue into dramatic and poetic conflict, using psychological concepts as metaphors for the oppression and hypocrisy that Williams fought against. The resulting short work captures the fragility of the characters, the domestic tension, and the search for liberation through art, all under the invisible yet palpable shadow of trauma.
You are very kind, Mr. John. Tennessee Williams deserves something better, but we didn't have time to create much more, so I transported what I learned from Dr. Champ. I tried to do it within the raw and direct style to honor the author.
Bella, this was an enormous challenge, and you did not run from it. You delivered your message, and you will help Daniel and many other young people. That is why Tennessee Williams would be proud now. You followed his steps without fear of losing your way. You did not only speak about sovereignty and freedom, you acted as someone who possesses them. Congratulations.